And we are back here with another video, one of the good old classics. Me, the football expert, joined here by the American Football Network, Lincoln. It's like the good old days, not too long
Yeah, it
ago when we
is.
were doing these uh, all the time in high school. Now college and everything like that has really delayed these, but we're back with a way too early CFP prediction just to annoy people because they're way too early, and eventually you have a team like Indiana make a run and it makes no then these predictions just look stupid. If we had made predictions last year, they would have looked pretty bad probably because
Probably so.
Notre Dame, Penn State, and Texas all would have been it.
Yeah.
And well, Texas didn't make it if I remember correctly, right? Yeah, they didn't make it, right?
No.
Okay, so yeah, all four of those teams we would have had, and all four of them would have missed it. But yeah, that brings us to this year for some more predictions that will make us look stupid in about 5 months, but that's not important. Fun times for now. So start off with some honorable mentions. Lincoln, what is your honorable mention you like to add here?
So I've kind of gone back and forth between three: LSU with Lane Kiffin and pretty much Ole Miss's roster from about half their roster from last year. But I decided to steer away from them. The other one I thought about going with was NC State. I like CJ Bailey. I like that defense. I think they got a shot at. I don't think that they're definitely not a team I would put in the top 12 without winning the ACC. That's the only reason I have them up there is I
Mhm.
think they're a team who could win the ACC. Kind of a dark horse for that.
Yeah,
Who I'm actually going to go
yeah.
with as my honorable mention is Michigan. You get Kyle Whittingham
Mm,
at head coach.
yeah.
He's going to have your defense squared away, looking good. Bryce Underwood going into his second year, I think your offense could be a lot more productive, particularly in passing downs. So I think getting Whittingham a good head coach who's hopefully not going to
Mhm,
have the scandals that came with Sharon Moore. Getting him at head
mhm.
coach, get that defense
Yeah.
fixed up and more elite than it already was and has been the last couple of years. And
Mhm.
then Bryce Underwood in his second season with a little bit, hopefully a little bit more juice in that offense. I think Michigan's a team who can make a run and find themselves in a playoff spot.
Yeah, and you bring up an interesting point with that. Do you think Underwood is overhyped or underhyped when it comes into this season? Because I feel like the last season it was pretty overhyped. But what do you think about this season? Because I hear a lot less about him going into this season.
I think he's probably right where he needs to be as far as hype goes, because you'll
Mhm.
have some people who are still hyping him up, Heisman Trophy, gonna win a national championship, all this stuff, and he hasn't shown anything that warrants that kind of attention. But on the
Yeah.
flip side, there's also just as many people saying he's a bust, he sucks,
Mm.
he wouldn't start at a Group of Five school. You got that crowd too. I think he's somewhere in the middle of there is where his hype
Mhm.
belongs. I feel like that's everybody's general idea on it. Like he's a solid, talented player, but he had a bad year last year, so let's see what he does this year.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. My honorable mention is University of Southern California, and it pains me to say that because I'm a Notre Dame fan, and yet I'm advocating for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans of Southern Cal. Um, but yeah, no, I have this team in my. Think that they're in the general direction of the playoff. Honestly, if they had beaten Illinois last year, they very well possibly could have been in it. It would have made it even more interesting if Southern Cal didn't lose to Illinois. Then it would have been Southern Cal, Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame and BYU for that last spot. And that would have been an incredibly
Yeah,
interesting argument because you would have had Notre Dame beating USC at 10-2, and then you would have had Miami in there beating Notre Dame at 10-2, and then you have Alabama and that whole thing. But it would have. I just want to say that even though Southern Cal was 9-3, they were a 2-point conversion against Illinois away from a possible playoff berth. This team is not the same team that it was at the very start of Lincoln Riley's tenure. The defense was horrible then. It actually has a basis now. I don't think that they're an elite championship level defense. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. But do I think that they're a team that can compete and make the playoff and even get through this rigorous Big Ten schedule that they keep trying to get out of the Notre Dame contract, and they finally did. But I think that this is a team that very well could find themselves in the playoff. They would need to win one of the tough games on their schedule against Ohio State or Oregon or Michigan. They would have to win one of those, and those are the 3 toughest teams in the conference. So you can't go lower than 10-2, but I think 10-2 does get you in with that tough of a schedule.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that brings us
I
to
agree.
Yeah, and that brings us to the group of 5 slot. I had Boise State, you had App State. Honestly, I told you before this video, I'm like, you could convince me of any upper level group of 5 school kind of
Yeah.
making the
Oh, yeah.
playoffs.
I mean, you got South Florida in there, bringing some guys back. Tulane, we'll see.
Mhm.
They've been pretty solid the last couple of years, but lost their head coach.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a bunch up there. UNLV, there's definitely some teams
True.
up there you can convince me of. I like App State, kind of more of a local team, kind of a fun team to watch.
Mhm.
They bring back a lot of production, some of the top production from last year of the group of 5 schools. So I think they got a good shot.
Yeah, I think personally with Boise State, it mostly just has to do with their consistency.
Mhm.
And we've all seen their consistency all throughout time. Like, this is a team that was competing 20 years ago against Oregon in a Fiesta Bowl and winning that game. And this team went 9-5 last year, 6-2 in conference play. I'm not saying that they're going to get all of a sudden a lot better, but they also don't have a Notre Dame game on the schedule. That does help your record a little bit. So that also helps. So I had them, but you could convince me of any of the teams that you just said, Lincoln.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that brings us to number 11, BYU. What are your thoughts on this team and going into this season with Kalani Sitake?
This is a team I think they've really that first year that they were in the Big 12, they really struggled. But pretty much since then, it's just been straight up from there. They've looked great. They've been right there on the verge of the playoffs the last 2 years, and have had a solid argument to have gotten in over the last seed the last 2 years. So this is a team I think finally takes that step forward. Now I'm blanking on his name, but their wide receiver, star wide receiver, there's a whole thing going on with him, like a whole sexual assault case or something. I believe he got arrested. Now I don't remember if he was going to the draft or if he was still on. I'm pretty sure he was still on the roster.
Parker Kingston, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He's no longer on the team. I have no
Yeah.
idea whether he was draft eligible or.
It was a whole mess with all that going on. But I've regardless of that, I think this team's able to find a way. I think they're able to find a way to build around each other, keep that good culture going, and get themselves into the playoffs finally.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that it starts honestly with Kalani Sitake. Like, you have a quarterback in Bear Bachmeier, who the most interesting thing is that he wears number 47, which is kind of the weirdest number for quarterbacks. But honestly, I just like Sitake as a head coach. I think that he is a perfect fit at BYU, and honestly has built the program to where it is now. And it has not seen this heights since the zenith of the program with the national championship in 1984. So I think that BYU finally makes the hump, finally gets over the hump, makes the playoffs. So I think BYU is that number 11 seed. And with that, it brings us to that 10 seed. Lincoln, it's your Tigers. What do you think about Clemson going into this season? It's kind of, I feel like, a make or break season for what Dabo's legacy will be. Like, will he be able to turn it around, or will he continue to languish, to fall further off of that pedestal?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I don't think it's as much as his legacy that's in the balance, because he won 2 national championships in the first one 35 years. So he's definitely forever going to be the best Clemson coach there is. But it definitely will be a huge make or break season for how much support from fans that he has. After it's been rough since Trevor Lawrence left and after the 2020 season. And it's just slowly declined. And then it kind of went back up, got a little better. We made the playoff with Cade, won the ACC again. And then last year, all the expectations, all that, and just plummeted. But I like this team. I like this team. The defense lost some big pieces, but I think it's going to be much improved of a defense. As the guys you lost, big names with TJ Parker, Peter Woods, Wade Woodaz. But when you actually watch the game, what did they do last year? Nothing. There was so many games I would watch, and you wouldn't hear Peter Woods or TJ Parker's name the entire game. And it's like these guys are supposed to be big dogs in the, going in the first round, which they probably still will. At least definitely very high up in the draft. But it's like, what, where were you? You walk around campus, you act like you're a big dog, and then come game day, we don't hear your name for the entire game. So I would much rather have Will Helt and Jaheim Lawson out there getting all the snaps at defensive end than TJ Parker out there who did nothing all last year. Same with Peter Woods, Wade Woodaz. I think losing Farrelly back to Ole Miss and the transfer portal, I think that hurts your linebackers a little bit. Obviously, he was going to be a starter, going to be a good player, ACC rookie, rookie of the year last year, defensive rookie of the year last year.
Yeah.
The studded linebacker. And then Courtney Kelly, your big transfer defensive tackle who was supposed to help replace Stephylon Green and Peter Woods. He goes down with a torn ACL in spring practice. So it's definitely something that is it's going to hurt losing those guys. But I think this defense, you get Tom Allen as guys in there. I think the big improvement you're going to see is in that secondary. Because Tom Allen flat out said it last fall. He was like, I can't run my defense because these guys flat out suck. They can't play man coverage. I can't run my defense. I'd love to blitz, but I can't leave any of these guys. I can't trust any of them out there one-on-one with somebody. They get beat every time. And so it was nice to see him call them out. Nice to see him go and get some of his guys in. On the flip side, offense, you got some pieces. As far as quarterback goes, we'll see what Christopher Vizina is. On the bright side, he can't be any worse than what we had last year. He played a good had a good game against SMU. Now, granted, they were the worst Power 4 pass defense in the country the time he played them. But Tate Reynolds looked great in the spring game, and Dabo said immediately after that game he's clearly QB2 on the depth chart now that Denson just hasn't developed as a passer. So I think there's a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of potential for this team. Can they put it all together? We'll see. But I like the transfers we brought in. I think this is a team that could go win the ACC. I think they will.
Yeah. And the only thing that I would like to ask your opinion as a Clemson fan, what does the running back room look like this year? Because that's one of the things that in the Clemson National Championships run, there's been a solid running back to be able to take the load off the quarterback, and something that I feel like has been lacking a little bit the past couple of years. Where does the running back room look this year?
I think Gideon Davidson's going to take that next step. He's a freshman last year. He's a very good running back last year. I personally felt he didn't get the ball enough and should have at least split carries 50-50 with Adam Randall. So I think he's going to get in there and take that step forward. But then also you get the transfer from SMU, Chris Johnson Jr., who might be the fastest guy in the country. And that's why Dabo went out there and got him. I think he's going to be electric, not just out of the backfield. I think you're going to see all kinds of plays, trick plays into reverses, little screen passes, just anything to get him out in open field and let him just run. So I think that's something you're going to see a lot of is how they move Chris Johnson around. It's kind of like that Swiss Army knife. And I think, like I said, Gideon Davidson's going to take that next step forward. And I think that David Eziomu, I think he's another guy who you could see getting in the mix. He struggled a little bit in some pass protection and seeing the holes. But I think if you can develop him to that next step, he's another guy that you can get a lot of production. I think it'll definitely be more of a backfield by committee than a sole standout running back like those national championship teams. Like you're not going to have an ETN or a Wayne Gallman on this team. But with
Mhm.
these three guys, you can get the same production that ETN and Gallman gave you between the
Mhm.
three guys, or at least close to it. Especially with this Chad Morris offense back. He spent the last few years just traveling all over the country, studying offenses and stuff. Again, also Clemson fans seem to forget Chad Morris wasn't fired. He took a head coaching job at SMU and did pretty good there before he set Arkansas's football program back 15 years. But
Yeah.
we've seen it,
Yeah.
we've seen it plenty of times. Just because you're a bad head coach does not take away from what you are as a coordinator. It's
Mhm.
completely different positions. So I'm excited for Chad Morris to be back again. Kind of like with the quarterbacks, it can't be worse than what Garrett Riley was.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny you say that because it's exactly the story of Tom Allen too. Like, Tom Allen
Yeah.
could not win at Indiana,
Mm-mm.
and, like, I don't give him any like, yes, Kurt Cignetti won at Indiana, but that's in an entirely different era. There's nothing that
Mm-mm.
is similar about what Kirk Cignetti did and
We'll
also
say Tom Allen
what
did one
Tom
year.
Allen
Tom Allen did win. What was it? 10. He went 10-2 at Indiana, didn't he?
Yeah, I'd have to
Nine and
look
three. I
this
know they
up.
had Penix because I remember Penix diving for the goal line to beat Penn State.
No, he definitely, had some years there. 6-2 in 2020, second in the
That's right.
Big Ten, and a loss in the Outback Bowl. So it was 6-1 in conference play, and 8-5 the year before that. But then it just kind of took a cliff
Yeah, the
dive,
six and
two and
two was the
ten.
year I was remembering with Penix.
Yeah, yeah, no, that was a. If they had actually had like a year there, that team very well would have won 10 games, like you were
Oh yeah,
thinking. That because you would have had like 3 non-conference cupcakes like they did last year.
yeah, yeah.
So you would have easily gotten to 9 and then possibly gotten another win in the Big Ten schedule or something like that. But yeah, and I think that that's kind of what you see with the number 9 team we have, Old Miss. And honestly, I had Old Miss a little bit higher than I had LSU, mostly just I think it's funny in part with the Lane Kiffin stuff that went on and Pete Golding now being at Old Miss and staying at Old Miss instead of following Lane Kiffin to Old Miss or to LSU. I think that'll be interesting. But at the end of the day, from my understanding, unless if there's some sort of Supreme Court intervention, and I mean like the federal Supreme Court, uh, Trinidad Chambliss will be playing at Old Miss next
I'm
year.
pretty sure it already went to Supreme Court, and they've said that's as
Okay.
far as it. That's they already said it's as far as it going, and he's playing next year.
Okay. Okay. So he's playing next year.
Yeah,
I honestly, I just kept seeing back and forth court cases.
I saw the
And
ESPN
I,
notification about it. I think like 2
okay.
weeks ago that says for sure
Yeah.
now he'll be back.
Okay. And that's the big thing is that
Oh
with
yeah,
Chambers and Lacey back as a duo, like you look at this team's defense, there it's like an entire transfer loaded defense. 9 out of the 11 starters are transfers.
oh yeah,
So I think that's going to be interesting. But when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, they're going to be firing on all cylinders. And Pete Golden is a defensive guy. So I think I trust the defense enough to be able to not give up 50 points a game, maybe like 30.
yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I think Ole Miss again. It all comes down to Chambliss, but I think this is a team. Pete Golden, solid head coach. I think he brings that
Mhm.
aggressiveness and fireness that this team needs. That I don't think there's a step down from Kiffin to Golding when it comes to the aggressiveness part and the just tenacity that they want them out there playing with, and just the
Mhm.
it's 4th and 11. We're down 3 with a whole quarter and a half to go. Screw it. Let's go for it on
Yeah.
our own 40-yard line and just either go win the game or lose it right here in the third quarter. They both kind of have that same
No,
kind of
probably the
attitude
first
to 'em.
quarter. Probably the first.
Yeah, yeah. They both have that same kind of attitude to them, and I like it. I think that's good for the way this team's been built.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I definitely think it's gonna be an interesting it's gonna be interesting to see Golden over an entire season as the head coach. Because last year, obviously, coached well in the playoffs, took them to the semifinals without
Oh yeah,
Kiffin. So I also am taking that into account with a higher ranking for Ole Miss. Number 8, Alabama. Also, I think kind of a make or break season a little bit on how a fan base thinks about their head coach and Kalen DeBoer with Alabama. if Alabama misses the playoffs this year, I think you're starting to ask some questions about whether DeBoer is the coach at Alabama next year. Like, I mean, even if he is 9-3, beat Auburn, like didn't do anything too stupid, I still think DeBoer could possibly be in the let go range, mostly just because it just never felt to me, and like you can say what you think, like it just never felt to me that Alabama and Kalen DeBoer ever really fit. Like it
Mm-mm.
just they seem to be two different personalities, and they just seem to like DeBoer is a Big Ten guy. It feels like it
Oh yeah,
doesn't feel like he's a guy that fits well in the SEC. He isn't a Southerner. He never has the pedigree to come down the South. Never really coached in the South before Alabama. So I say this as a Northerner. I lived the first 12 years of my life in Illinois. Like he just doesn't seem to fit Alabama. And so I think that they're going to have a much shorter leash on him. So I do think they make the playoff, but don't be surprised if they don't.
yeah, I agree completely. I mean, it all comes down to can they find a run game, because that was the biggest thing that just messed them up last year, and that's why they couldn't beat Georgia again. It's why they lost the games they lost. They did not have a run game to go with that passing game, and they had Jeremy Bernard, Ryan Williams, two great, outstanding wide receivers out there. But it doesn't matter when everybody knows you're throwing the football. It makes it a whole lot easier to cover when you can rush 3 or 4 and shut down the run game like teams were doing to Bama last year. Your offense is going to suffer. So they got to find that, and I think that could. That'll make or break what happens with them this season. But going on to number 7, what do you think about Texas Tech back in the college football playoff?
That's going to be a very interesting one. Joey McGuire is a fantastic head coach. Seems like a very likable guy, a guy that I put in like the top 5 of like you want to go play for. I think he's a guy that a lot of people want to go play for. So I have a lot more passion for a guy like that. Outside of that, they brought in Brandon Sorsby. They have oil money. They brought in a bunch of other recruits. Like they have the money to be able to keep going with this. So I think at the end of the day, I just find it hard to see somebody else winning the Big 12 other than Texas Tech. I'm not saying BYU is bad, but the difference that we saw in the Big 12 championship game between BYU and Texas Tech was a pretty large gap.
Oh, yeah.
So I think both teams are playoff teams, but there's a pretty big gap there.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And you saw last year, Texas Tech, great defense. You look at this team coming into this year, they lost some pieces. Jacob Rodriguez, their leader, their captain on the defensive side. You lose him, it's definitely going to hurt. But the biggest thing, they upgraded at quarterback, and Brendan Sorsby may be the best quarterback in the country coming into this season. He very well may be the best quarterback in the country this year. So that big upgrade at quarterback, I think, can help cover up those other holes that you were left with after last year. I think this team's honestly going to be better than they were last year. I think they can be better. I think the defense might be will be a little bit worse, but I think the offense will be a lot more consistent. I'm not saying that they beat Oregon in the playoffs this time, whatever, but then they're not getting shut out. The offense is going to be much better, much more improved, and a lot more consistent. So number 6, I'll let you take this one away. You're Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I think it's the year of the Fighting Irish. I think this is my optimism. Lincoln knows this. Lincoln has known my predictions for long enough to know that I am going to be a Notre Dame homer. And most of you guys that have been around this channel for a while are going to know that I am a Notre Dame homer. But I do feel like this year it's kind of justified. You bring back CJ Carr. He is one of the best quarterbacks, I think, in college football. He's making NFL throws that, honestly, if you talk to a lot of the scouts that are covering the NFL draft this year, I think a lot of them would be willing to take CJ Carr as the number 2 quarterback in this class, if not possibly the number 1, depending on how they view Mendoza and systems and everything. Like I think the difference between Carr and this draft class he would be a top level guy in this draft class. So I think that he is a very good quarterback, not only NFL wise, but I think also just as a Notre Dame quarterback. Like his stats were fantastic last year, but big but you don't have Jeremiah Love and you don't have Jadarian Price. That's the two of the best running backs in college football last year, and two probably first round NFL running backs, probably the top two running backs, honestly, depending on what mock drafts you're looking at. Some people have Price as the third running back. Some people have as the number two running back. So like two top three running backs. But at the same time, I do think that it will be interesting to see what happens with the offensive play calling with Denbrock. I think that you could see a lot more leaning on the running backs and tight ends out of the backfield because you have a guy like Anais Williams, who, if you watch the Penn State Notre Dame championship, the semifinal game in the college football playoff a couple of years ago, he was lighting up Penn State on wheel routes and little Texas routes and slants and stuff like that out of the backfield. But I think that the biggest factor when it comes to this Notre Dame team and whether they're going to be good or not is the defense. The defense almost entirely came back. You have your two top cornerbacks in Christian Gray and Leonard Moore back. Leonard Moore, one of the best cornerbacks in all of college football. And then you have a guy in safety at a Don Schuler, who is, I think, probably a top three safety in college football. Linebacking core is solid. I don't think you have any super special talents. You don't have like a Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah type of talent, but you have guys that are going to get tackles. And then I think that the biggest factor on this defense will be how it stands up run game wise, because last year that was probably the thing that struggled the most. Your pass defense was fantastic, but your run defense was iffy at times, depending on who you're playing. So you brought in a couple of transfers, especially the defensive nose tackle out of Oregon. That should be really interesting to see how he plays. But yeah, I think Notre Dame is in a good position to be able to compete for a national championship this year. And honestly, I do think it's kind of a national championship or bust type of season. I don't think you have to win it, but you kind of got to make it to be able to meet the expectations of the Notre Dame fan base for this season with Marcus Freeman.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. I completely agree with everything you said there on Notre Dame. Got to get the run defense squared up. Got to find the run game offensively because you're going to have the passing game with CJ Carr and his arm. But got to find a way to replace that production from Love and Price in the backfield, and they'll be solid again this year.
So moving on to number 5, Georgia. What are your thoughts, Lincoln?
It's Georgia. I mean, at this point, it's Georgia. You don't even have to look at the roster. Don't even have to look at the schedule, the stats. It's Georgia. Kirby Smart's earned the respect. He's gonna get them there. You don't always know how. He probably doesn't always know how, but somehow they're just there. It's just what he does. He wins. Signetti's great head coach, but Kirby Smart's still the best head coach in the country. He just is. He just is. They bring Gunnar Stockton back. You know they're going to have an elite defense and an elite high-powered offense. They're going to play physical and aggressive and tough. They're going to be hard to beat. Yeah. Georgia's going to be back in there. I think they're going to be the second best team in the SEC at worst. And so I think it's them or Texas who's going to win the SEC championship. I think they're clearly the two best teams in the SEC. I got Georgia. We got Georgia at 5. Again, at this point, like you don't even have to look at anything. You just know Georgia's going to be there.
Yeah. No, I honestly don't have anything to add. Georgia is a good team. Gunnar Stockton's a good quarterback, and honestly, Kirby Smart probably the best coach in the country, or at least in the top 3 in terms of accolades and everything like that. Tied for the most active active coach national championships with 2 with Dabo. Nobody else is even close. Some people have 1, but nobody else has 2. Brings us to number 4, Oregon. What are your thoughts on the Ducks this season and Dan Lanning?
Kind of like Georgia in the sense that Oregon's the best regular season team just about every year the last couple of years. Now, is it going to translate to anything in the playoff? Maybe they win a couple games, get to a semifinal, lose a national championship. So they're not a team I'm really worried about winning a national championship, but they got the talent, they have the offense, they got the guys on the defense. That Oregon, they're just one of the most talented teams. Dan Lanning, pretty good coach, always has his guys pretty prepared and ready. So they're going to be there. Now, when the lights are on them and everything's shining down, are they going to perform in the playoff? We'll see. But as far as making the playoff and being one of the best teams in the regular season, 100% they'll be there.
Yeah. I think honestly it relies a lot on Dante Moore. Dante Moore came back this year, was a high-level prospect, could have been or probably would have been a first-round pick, possibly could have even gone number 1 overall. So I think that this is what Dante Moore came back for. So you want him to succeed. You want him to actually have come back for a reason. So I think that Oregon is in a good spot. Like I said, or like you said, defensively, they're a good team. Offensively, they're solid. There's not many holes on this team, but can they make it to the next level? They finally got a playoff win for the first time since, I guess, the first playoff when they made the national championship against Ohio State last year with the win against Texas Tech.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, that'd be right.
So that brings out an interesting thing there. We'll see if they can upgrade that. But talking about teams that are upgrading, none other than the Indiana Hoosiers. I'm just hoping for a Notre Dame Indiana game. That would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it'd be a great game, especially now that the first playoff when we got the Notre Dame Indiana game. Indiana was a nice story, but everybody knew they weren't on that level yet. They needed one more year. They weren't competing. They had that Notre Dame team played last year's Indiana team. That would have been the game of the year. Very good game. Indiana, you look at them. As far as IQ and just the it factor and just a way to make it happen and get it done and just an overall teammate, they're taking a downgrade at quarterback. There's not really anybody that's going to compare to Mendoza in that way. But when it comes to purely arm talent and talent on the football field, as far as athleticism and stuff, Indiana got a huge upgrade with Josh Hoover. If Cignetti can get him to buy in like Mendoza did, then this is a guy who can take this offense to an even higher level. Now it's going to be hard as Surratt is also gone, so you lose your top receiver. You're going to have to replace him.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, even though it's only been 2 years and it's crazy, I feel like you just trust Cignetti right now. He's working his thing. They're bringing transfers in left and right. Nobody really knows what exactly to think of them because they got a lot of transfers, a lot of guys who haven't played together. But you just trust the guy because he's made it work the last 2 years. I trust him to make it work again this year with an even more talented quarterback. I think they're up there with Oregon and Ohio State as the best teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think Indiana top down is one of the best teams in the country. And like you said, you just got to trust Kurt Cignetti. They have Nick Marsh, the transfer wide receiver from Michigan State. He should be really interesting because honestly, one of the most freak talents when it comes to college football at wide receiver. Honestly, if he has a good season this year, tests well at the combine next year, he could very well be the number 1 overall wide receiver next year in the draft. So I could very well see that. Brings us to number 2. Number 2 is Texas, the Longhorns. Hook 'em horns. They're a team that has a lot of buy-in with Steve Sarkisian, but a Texas team that just has not really been able. I feel like they're a good team. I feel a lot of Oregon vibes with this Texas team. Like they're not a team that I feel confident can I don't know. Like I hate to say this, but confident that a team that they're going to make it past the semifinals, that they're a team that's capable of making it to the final round, to the championship, especially with the game at home game against Ohio State. We should see that. Just a spoiler alert: number 2 Texas, number 1 Ohio State. So we have our number 1 and number 2 matching up in week number 2, which is crazy.
Oh yeah, got a great game out of it last year. Although the score was close, but you never really felt like Texas was threatening Ohio State. I think it will be a different story this year. I think Texas probably gets the edge on them this year. With it being at home, I think they're pretty split even, hard to pick. But with Texas at home, but I think Sark's a great coach. I think he's the guy who can do it. It all depends on Arch Manning, but I still have him too. I don't know what he's going to be. He's inconsistent last year. Showed some really great flashes. Showed some just sorry quarterback play. But when you look at the wide receiver core Texas has, it really doesn't matter if Arch Manning goes out there blindfolded and throws it as far as he can with his left hand. Somebody's going to be down there to catch the ball. That's what does it for me with Texas. Them and Ohio State, number 1, number 2 wide receiver rooms. Put either one of them at 1. I won't make an argument against it. Pretty even. Cam Coleman, Jeremiah Smith, best 2 receivers of college football. Coleman for Texas, Smith for Ohio State. Best 2 guys in college football. I personally lean Texas slightly when it comes to wide receiver room, but if you want to make an argument for Ohio State, I'm not going to sit here and argue back with you. Again, I just think that offense for Texas, it's going to be more consistent simply just based off the talent.
Yeah. No, I think it's a Texas team that, to be frankly honest, this is going to show how much I watched college football last year. At least like just general games that did not affect my own team. I forgot about Texas missing the playoffs last year. I, for some reason, thought they were in the playoffs. I have no idea why I thought that, but I thought they did. So, yeah, no, I forgot about that. But I think that Texas is a good team, and I think you're 100% right. Even if Arch Manning isn't the greatest quarterback, it's a team that there's just no way this team can not make it. Like, they're just too good talent-wise. Yeah. Then that brings us to number 1, Ohio State. And, well, they're Ohio State. Even though I do not like Ryan Day, even though I'm not a big fan of Ohio State, you got to respect the talent. You got to respect what he's done there. Even though I don't think Ryan Day is the best of head coaches, I don't think he's on the level of Kirby Smart or Marcus Freeman or Steve Sarkisian.
He's not, but he's not Ohio State in that same conversation that we had with Kirby Smart with Georgia. It's you don't always know how they're going to do it. He's just going to be there. He's gonna be in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what you think about the roster, how tough you think the schedule is, how many games they're going to lose. It doesn't matter. They're going to be in the playoff. It's just going to happen. They will be in the playoff.
Yeah, and it's something that last year with this Ohio State team, they lost by 3 in a defensive slugfest with Indiana. And I think that this Ohio State team is better than they were last year. So I just think that when it comes down to it, if it's that close, I think I'm going to give the edge to Ohio State just because of that. Though the road game against Indiana and the road game against USC and then the home game against Oregon, that's a murderer row of a stretch.
Oh, it is.
That's just an insane stretch. So,
and again, I would not be surprised if they win all 3. I wouldn't be surprised if they lose 2 of 3.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Yeah. And honestly, it would be like semi-justifiable for Ryan Day to lose 2 out of 3. Like you can't punish him for losing 2 out of 3 when he goes on the road twice to 2 teams that I think are going to be in the top 10, and then one home game against the top 10. Like I think they're going to be playing 3 straight top 10 games, which is bonkers. But it's just kind of how the schedule falls. Like this is the problem with super conferences, is that sometimes the schedule falls and you have like one of those teams like Oregon did last year. And then there's some of the games where they fall and it's like, oh, you have everybody on the schedule.
Yeah.
And it's unfair. It is unfair to judge people that way because, well, there's just there's going to be a coach on the hot seat. Let's say a Minnesota coach like PJ Fleck. I'm not saying he's on the hot seat. I don't think Fleck's on the hot seat. But let's say he went 5-7 last year on the hot seat, and Minnesota has to go on the road, play at USC, at Indiana, a home game against Oregon, and then later on in the season they have a home game against Ohio State. Like those are 4 losses that you would have to really, really play well in one of those games to even get a win, much less get multiple wins.
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. It's just one of those things you can't hold it against them. And real quick as we wrap up, 2 teams I do want to mention that I don't think they're good enough to be an honorable mention spot, but 2 teams to keep out on an eye on this year: Virginia Tech with James Franklin, Brent Pry coming back as defensive coordinator, all the transfers they've got in there, and Penn State. Penn State's still a good program. Everybody's sleeping on them because of the down year last year. But that's a team I could see them doing some damage in the Big Ten. I don't think they'll finish in the top 4 of the Big Ten, but I could see Penn State going 8-4, having a solid year, looking much more improved. If they're able to sneak, 2 big upsets in there, they might be 10-2 looking at a playoff spot, although it's unlikely. But 2 teams to watch out this year that could really catch some people off guard.
Yeah, definitely for sure. But that, as you said, wraps up today's video. So make sure you subscribe. Both channels will be on the video. So make sure you subscribe to both and hit that notification bell because we'll have a bunch more videos coming out soon on both of our channels individually. And then we will definitely have some more collaborations on some videos later on. So that's all, unless if you have anything else, Lincoln.
Nope, that'll be it. So appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you next time.